Hey, good morning. My name is George, and this is Suzanne. We are here representing Wilkes Recovery Revolution, as well as our own perspective yoga personas. We are here for Eating for Wellness, and it's a wonderful workshop that lasts about an hour to 2 hours. We've been working together, me and Suzanne, on getting this wrapped up for you, and she has an amazing set of information that she's going to bring to us today. And I am excited to have this experience. But I'm going to keep it short and sweet. I have Suzanne here, and she's going to take it away.
All right, welcome everyone. It's nice to be here with you today. We have a chat in the screen here, so if at any moment you have any questions or comments, please feel free to throw them out to us. I'm Suzanne Martin. I'm a yoga health coach or a conscious health coach. I use the tools of yoga and Ayurveda to help my clients and students live a holistic lifestyle and facilitate habits in their life that support their overall well-being. These habits are around when they sleep, when they eat, what they eat, and meditation and all those kind of practices that perhaps you've dabbled in before, but maybe haven't lived as a complete lifestyle yet, and maybe you're starting to experiment. And my hope is that after today's talk, what I will bring to you will be just little seeds and little tips of advice that you might take into your daily life that might be useful and helpful. So our talk today is really on eating for wellness. And what we are going to talk about is what has really become the last diet ever for me and for many of the people that I work with. So basically, what we're going to talk about is how the time and when you eat matters quite a bit, and how you eat matters quite a bit to your ability to digest and assimilate your food to build a nutritious and strong and supple body. And so what we're talking about here are the tools of Ayurveda. So what is Ayurveda? So Ayur is the science of, and Veda means life. So this is the science of life and healing and longevity. And when I say life, I mean it as part and parcel of a larger macrocosmic field. So that life is the spirit of life at large. It's not just the life of you and me, but it's the life of all beings everywhere and that expands out to the cosmos. So I'm going to take a moment to just share my screen so that you can see. What I'm talking about here. Okay. So, are we seeing a slideshow in present mode? Yes? Maybe? Can't hear you, so I can't tell.
We are.
Okay, thank you. All right. So there's me and my husband and my daughter. There's my little brief about Suzanne. All right, so Ayurveda. So the foundational teaching of Ayurveda is Yatha Pinde Tata Brahmande, Yatha Brahmande Tata Pinde. And what this means is, as is in the universe, so is in you. And as is in you, so is within the universe. And so what that means is that the same elements that created the stars and the cosmos and the planets and the trees and the water and the earth and everything that is manifest in the natural world is also within you. So you see these image examples that show the parallels between the natural world and our human body. You can see the tree of life, and that's synonymous to the placenta. A tree stump looks very much like our fingerprints. A lung looks like a tree branch. Leaf veins look like human veins, and river networks and so forth. So there's that aspect in which we are reflections of the macrocosm. But there's also the aspect that, hey, those elements that made your body are in the trees, the rocks, the rivers, everything out there, right? And so the five main elements that compose our being are earth, water, air, fire, and ether. And so in yoga and Ayurveda, when we want to try to live a holistic and healthy lifestyle, what we try to do is we try to attune to nature. Because what happens is the more that we can attune to nature and recognize this concept as within, so without, as is out there in the universe, so is within us, then what starts to happen is that we start to feel like uh, the wind is in our sails and we're floating downstream rather than like swimming upstream in our daily lives. So, what we're going to talk about here is specifically geared towards digestion, but these techniques and practices that I'm going to talk about really help the whole body. So, when I work with people, I see hormones balance out, I see sleep recover, I see blood sugar levels balance. And so, people's bodies become a lot healthier overall. And so, what I'd like to talk about now is the trajectory of human evolution and how we were fundamentally primates. So, as primates, our digestive systems and our circadian rhythms and everything about this whole body mind sense complex has evolved over a great sense of time. Now, our modern lifestyle doesn't really reflect that. With electricity, with lights, with technology, and so forth, what we're starting to see is that our natural circadian rhythms and our relationship with ourselves as primates is starting to disappear. So we go to bed really late, or we sleep in really late. Well, if you've ever been camping and kind of like re-submerged yourself into the natural world, then you know that like the body really functions with the sun rising and the sun setting. Usually when you're camping, you usually end up waking up earlier, and then you also end up going to bed a little bit earlier because the body wants to synchronize with nature's rhythms. So that's what we're going to talk about a lot today, is like how we eat and how, when we synchronize with nature, how that starts to affect the mind body sense complex. And so there are all these different universal laws out there, and some of these include rhythms, the way that the universe is moving. These universal rhythms include seasonal rhythms: winter, spring, summer, and fall. They include circadian rhythms, the sun rising and the sun setting, and how we attune to that. They include moon rhythms, and that really has to do around women's cycles, and then ultradian rhythms. So if you've ever been at work, for instance, you might have noticed that, hey, after about an hour and a half, my attention span starts to shift, right? And then I need to go get up and walk around or have a sip of coffee or whatever kind of get me up a bit to kind of get my energy revved up again. That's because that's about how long our natural attention span and attention cycle runs. So if you make a meeting that's like 2 to 3 hours long, it can be really hard for the mind to stay focused the entire time. So in Ayurveda and yoga science, we try to honor these rhythms as part of this understanding that, yes, we are part of this great macrocosmic perspective. We have a great spirit that is part of that, but also by recognizing that, hey, when we attune to these rhythms, our bodies feel better. Our mind is better able to focus. We have better energy. We get better sleep. We can digest our food better, and so forth. So, what I'm saying essentially is that time is more important than what when it comes to food. And we're going to learn as we go through today's talk is that our energy shifts at different times of day and during different seasons based upon those 5 elements and how they are in the atmosphere. And so circadian rhythm or circadian medicine has started to show us that, hey, there are different times of day when we are more alert. There's different times of day when we have better coordination and our body temperature is different and our blood pressure is different and our cortisol releases and our melatonin, so our whole hormonal cycles shift depending upon what time of day it is. Now, what I'd like to share with you is what's referred to as the Ayurveda clock. So if I'm going to go over here and just give me a moment to sync up here. This is best shown in real time as a drawing because it's a bit different. Okay, so this is the Ayurveda clock, and we have a 10 a.m. and 10 p.m. cycle, as well as a 2 a.m. and 2 p.m. cycle, and a 6 a.m. and a 6 p.m. thing going on there, right? And so what we know is that around this time, if we're looking at the day cycle, the sun is strongest in the sky. So if you're saying that's noon, the sun is strongest in the sky. During that time, because the sun is strongest in the sky, the elements of fire and water are more predominant in the atmosphere. What this means in your physiology is that energy is rising just like the sun is rising, and fire and water together create more bile. Now, what does bile do? Bile helps to break down food, right? And so if we can start to recognize, okay, my body can better digest food when the sun is strongest in the sky, we recognize that, hey, the energy of metabolism is strongest during this time. This is what in Ayurveda is referred to as the Pitta dosha, Pitta. And basically, what we want to do to start to honor and recognize that is make sure that lunch is our biggest meal of the day. Now, back in the day, this is kind of how it was when we were more of an agrarian culture. Remember, I said we've evolved as primates and then move forward from there. So if we look back before tech kind of took over and the Industrial Revolution took over in 1950s Tupperware parties and all that kind of stuff, and that whole image of the big family dinner, before that, lunch was always the biggest meal and supper was supplemental. So when we were farmers and all that kind of stuff, we would make sure that we had a giant lunch and then so that we could work the fields and do all the farming. And then in the evening, sup means supplemental. So supper was a much smaller meal. Now, if we're moving on to the other cycles of the day, what we're going to start to see is that from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m., the energy of air and ether starts to become a little bit more predominant. Okay. And so during this time, energy starts to move in all different types of directions. So wind sweeps through the air, the sun has risen, the birds are already chirping, everything's moving around. There's a lot of bustle, hustle and bustle in the day during this time. Traffic is going, people are walking around, going through their days, going to work, and so forth, right? This is what in Ayurveda is referred to as Vata dosha. That energy moves in all different directions, and because the energy is dispersing, this is the energy of what's called catabolism. My pen just unsynced. Okay. Catabolism. And then if we keep going around that Ayurveda clock and we go from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m., then what we're noticing is that the sun starts to descend from the sky and energy starts to go downwards. And as the energy starts to go downwards, the earth and the atmosphere around us also start to get a lot more earth and water in the atmosphere. And so that earth and water brings about a heaviness to the atmosphere, and it brings about what's referred to as kapha dosha, earth and water, and an energy of, anabolism. And so this is the time of day when we start to wind down, when we start to prepare for bed. The sun is starting to set. And if we were camping, we'd be in bed well before 10 p.m. probably, because the sun is probably set pretty early, right? And then we're getting ready for that early rise in the morning. Now, the same energy happens in the night cycle. So if I'm looking at 10 p.m. to 2 a.m., we get another round of bile in that period, starting right around 10 p.m. But that energy of bile is meant to help not digest a big, heavy meal, but it's meant to help process the day, to digest the day and any toxicity that we've developed over the day. So this is the time when the body engages in what's referred to as autophagy. And this is the body's natural ability to clean house. And so autophagy is really this concept that was really explored in around 2016 or so, and it won a Nobel Prize for physiology or medicine, and it was awarded to Japan's Dr. Yoshinori Osumi for his discoveries of the underlying mechanisms of a physiological process where the body naturally detoxifies itself. It degrades and recycles damaged cells, proteins, and toxins. Now, if the body is really full from a really, really big supper, it can't process the toxins from your day because it's too busy digesting your evening meal. So, our main strategy here is to start to work on having an earlier, lighter dinner, a bigger lunch, and make sure that there's at least a 13-hour fast time between supper and our morning meal. And so what we try to do is we try not to eat from after supper all the way until breakfast for about 13 hours and just sip on water. Now, when you start to take that stretch of time into more of a 16-hour time slot, what starts to happen is stem cell production in the body. And so the body starts to really detoxify all the toxins of the body as well as create more regenerative cells for the body. And so just know that this process of eating that bigger lunch is well worth it for your body, mind, sense complex because you will naturally start to detoxify when you make that evening meal smaller and you create that 13-hour fast time. Okay. All right, so my question for you on trying to strategize, okay, how can I do this? If this is not already part of your rhythm, like how can I start to attune to this so that I can engage in that process of autophagy and allow my body's natural detoxification processes to start to take over? So, can I practice making lunch my biggest meal? How can I do that? So, let's take a moment to reflect and just write that down. How can I start to make lunch my biggest meal? And at the same time, just maybe type that into the chat so that those of us that are doing this reflection exercise can remember the questions as I go. The next question is like, what obstacles might come up for me? So let's say you've been eating a really big supper and you do that with your family and the kids have sports or whatever else going on after school, right? Let's say that that's kind of the issue. And you're trying to figure out, okay, how can I schedule this into my day? Right? Exactly. Meal prepping is super, super helpful for this. Great. And then, along with what obstacles might come up for me, what is my strategy around those obstacles? Right, exactly. So meeting and work schedules might be an obstacle to adjust around. So some of the techniques that I have found helpful over the days, or did someone want to come on? I just saw the screen kind of shift. Did you have any questions? Okay. All right. So some of the things that I've started to find helpful is to start thinking about planning, like Ariana was suggesting in there, right? And start to think about, okay, can I get a crock pot? And can I throw things into a crock pot to make things easier to have that supper? Can I prepare some of the food in the morning? How can I plan to coordinate this? How can I plan conversations with my family or my roommates to make these habits start to happen? And so if anyone has any shares on what's coming up for them, you're welcome to share them now. I'll give you a moment to step up if there's any obstacle and you want to troubleshoot it. And otherwise, if you're good to go, we'll keep going. So, one of the biggest obstacles that I found that I faced over the years in trying to get this habit into my life was like this kind of idea that I had this kind of cultural idea that I had to eat that later meal with my family because it was our time for connection. But what I found was over the years is that I could just have my meal earlier and they could have their meal earlier, or they could have their meal when they're ready after they're done with their sports and so forth, and I could sip on some tea while they ate. I also found that doing the meal prep and planning really helped me get that lunch bigger. I also found that cooking my meals kind of and prepping them in the morning also helped. And I also found that little small hacks, like making my plate a 10-inch plate instead of a 12-inch plate, or taking my fork and putting it down between bites, helped me to slow down enough to feel myself getting full and help me not overeat during that supper time. So there's a lot of cultural influences that work against us in getting this habit automated into our daily life. And this has to do with, the way that we are raised, the way that society is pushing us to eat later with all the drive-through meals showing up at 10 p.m., 12 p.m. all night long, right? It also has to do with our technological evolution and our jobs and working night shifts and so forth. So there's a lot to kind of start to work around and negotiate, but I invite you to continue to ask yourself those questions because it's really, really well worth it. What starts to happen when you start to eat an earlier, lighter dinner and have a bigger lunch is that your sleep cycles start to regulate. Your hormone levels, the endocrine system starts to balance out. Your gut microbiome starts to heal. What else starts to happen? You start to feel a little less lethargic and inflamed when you wake up in the morning. So if you're one of those people that wakes up with brain fog, with a little inflammation, has a little trouble getting up out of bed, then start to work on making lunch that bigger meal and start to work on creating that 13-hour fast time before um, breakfast engages on the next day. This will also do a lot for your stress levels and your ability to focus in your day at work. Okay. All right. So from here, let's talk about how we eat also matters. So basically, stress has a really big effect on our digestion. It destroys our gut, affecting our emotional balance, our energy, and our ability to fight disease. It also shuts down our lymphatic drainage pathways and it congests the liver. So when you're stressed out, the body goes into complete contraction, right? All the muscles kind of contract, the shoulders hunch over. If you've ever had a really good cry, you found yourself like in fetal position, curled up into a ball, everything starts to contract and harden in the body. And that does a lot for the lymphatic system and the digestive system and so forth. Yeah, I can share my screen again. Sorry, I'm getting a little bit. Okay, I'll come back here. Okay. And so basically, there are a variety of signs of stress here. I don't know if I shared the right screen. Can you see my screen? Can I get a yes? You can see my screen?
There we go. That's it.
Okay.
That's it.
All right.
Yes.
Good.
Thanks,
Okay.
Suzanne.
All right. So, okay. So this is what happens when you have stress and digestion going on. And then from there, what starts to happen is I just want us to have a general understanding of the signs of stress. Basically, when you're stressed out, you feel overwhelmed, you wake up feeling rushed into your day, you wish you were doing something else. You might feel pressed for time, you might show up late a lot. Your body might feel heavy and sluggish in the morning. You might feel trapped in your life and or body. You might want to make changes but can't figure out how. You're wired and tired and wish you could sleep through the night. You might feel depressed by your life and or the people in it. And so all of these kind of symptoms that show us that we're stressed out through our everyday life, aside from the bodily contraction, are really caused by one foundational principle. And that is that stress results when you feel that you're doing something you shouldn't do, or when you feel that you're being forced to do what you're doing. Stress also results when you're not able to do what you want to do, and that creates a conflict in your mind. And this passage is by Swami Rama, a great guru of the Himalayas. And so the solution, because it has to do with an internal conflict of the mind, is really to start to learn how to live in integrity. And so what do I mean by this? So let's say I wake up in the morning and my inner voice says, oh, get up and go exercise. That'll be good for you. It'll get you started on the day and you'll feel great. But then there's this other voice in my head that says, hey, I'm going to hit snooze and nestle up under these covers. Or, hey, you had a really hard week. You deserve to chill out under the covers, even though you know that doing some exercise would make you feel really energized, would get your system circulating, your blood flowing, so that you could go to work feeling like feeling on top of your day, right? And so little things like that, little decisions, right? So that creates conflict. That can create contraction in the body mind sense complex. And then let's say it goes on to breakfast time and you've gotten up finally, and the first thing you put in your mouth is coffee. And you know that coffee gives you acid reflux. You've been taking an antacid every single day. And you feel the acidity in your body. You feel yourself get hot, and you feel the body kind of ache, and you feel it in your bowels and all that kind of stuff. But you keep doing it and you keep doing it and you keep doing it, even though you know it's really hard to relax and calm down when you're all jittery and wired. Even though you know that, hey, I would do much better hydrating myself after 8 hours of sleeping where I didn't hydrate myself. So maybe having a couple cups of water before that cup of coffee is another solution there, right? And so let's say you go on towards lunchtime and you have the choice between, like, I don't know, a soup and like a cheeseburger and fries, or going through the drive-through, right? And you choose the cheeseburger and the fries and all, the junk food, when you already feel heavy and you had a big breakfast and you're not really that hungry, right? And so these are the kinds of decisions that start to make you feel like you're not living in integrity. And it's a million little decisions all day long where we are having this conversation with our intuition and with our ego, basically. And so, what we're learning to do is start to see the difference between the two and recognize, okay, which one is the voice of my intuition? Which one is the voice of my conscience? And start to follow that. So, let's say evening time starts to roll around and it's like you're into this Netflix series, but you're really, really tired. But you decide to hit next episode, next episode, next episode, next episode, and all of a sudden it's 3 a.m. and you can't seem to get to sleep because you're so wired from the show and the all the action that was happening in the shows you were watching. So these are examples, small little examples in how we live out of integrity. Right? And so we start to live in higher integrity by practicing the bridge of yoga. So the bridge, and this is a teaching of the American Meditation Institute, is where the inner wisdom of the superconscious mind, that intuitive voice within you, is reflected in your outer actions, your thoughts, words, and deeds. And when you start to heed this inner wisdom, what starts to happen is you experience union between the mirror self and the supreme self. So your higher self and like that ego voice that keeps coming in and tripping you up. Now, this is a lot easier said than done. Like I said, it's a million tiny decisions throughout the day. So we just start small. And there are a number of practices that yoga science and Ayurveda offer us to help us create that bridge between the inner intuitive voice that comes from your spirit or your soul and your outer actions. And these practices are 1-minute meditation, diaphragmatic breathing, and contemplation. And I recommend these to alleviate stress in your life to help you live in higher integrity. So let's take a moment to start to explore diaphragmatic breathing, and then we'll kind of review some of the other ones. So in diaphragmatic breathing, basically, there are 3 ways to start to access your breath. And the way that we can take fuller and deeper breaths is 3 ways. And we want it to be right around the rib cage here. I'm trying to get my body into the screen. And then, so it's thoracic, it's abdominal, thoracic, and then clavicular. So basically around your belly, around the middle of your body, around the rib cage, and then clavicular is the clavicles up here. So we want the breath to go all the way through. When the breath doesn't hit these 3 different points, what starts to happen is you might engage in other breathing patterns that might perpetuate a fight or flight stress response. So some of these breathing patterns might be short breathing, they might be chest breathing. And a lot of these are leading factors into things like heart disease or cardiovascular disease and perpetuated stress, which might lead to a variety of other autoimmune issues. So what we want to do is start to engage this big, deep breath, because what that's going to do is it's going to bring the body, mind, sense complex into a state of homeostasis, a state of balance. So that when you go through your days, you're not making the decision from that place of ego, from that place of, but you're making decisions from that place of intuition, from the place of your spirit, your soul. And when you do that, you're led to your highest and greatest potential, essentially. And so what we're talking about here is how to live in integrity using the tools of diaphragmatic breathing, first of all, so that we can come from a centered place as we navigate our days. So let's take a moment to practice that. So just take a moment and bring your hands to your belly and just feel the inflow and outflow of your breath there. And you can sit tall, you can close the eyes, you can stand up, whatever you'd like to do. And just inhale, feel the belly expand, and exhale, feel the navel draw in. Inhale, feel the belly expand, and exhale, feel the navel draw in. If you notice that your breathing pattern is opposite this, then you have some practice and work to do, okay? We want to bring our body mind sense complex out of fight or flight and into a place of rest and digest as we go through our days. Good. So inhale, belly expands, exhale, navel draws in. And then we'll take the hands to the rib cage and feel around the center cavity of the body, right? The thoracic area. And inhale, feel the ribs move with the lungs and diaphragm. And exhale, feel the ribs draw in a bit. Inhale, feel the ribs expand and move with the lungs and diaphragm. And exhale, feel them relax. And just do that a few more times with your breath. And so what we're starting to feel is that the breath moves in 3 dimensions, right? It's going out, and then now it's also gonna rise upwards towards the clavicles. So you can take your hands up here now, inhale, feel the breath expand into the chest, and exhale, feel it draw in. So now it's inhale, belly, ribs, chest all expand and rise. And exhale, the navel draws in, the ribs relaxes, the chest relaxes. Inhale, belly, ribs, chest all expand and rise. And exhale, we come back to center. So just feel that just a little bit more. We'll take about 5 more deep breaths here. Then when you're ready, just slowly start to release the practice and notice how you feel. And if you'd like to write about how you're feeling after that practice in the chat, you're more than welcome to, or share it with the group. So I'd like to go back to some of the practices that we were talking about to help reduce stress. And we just got a comment that less brain fog, more calm and centered after just a little bit of time of diaphragmatic breathing. So if this is new to you, if you notice that the breath felt really short or jagged or really bumpy and not smooth, or maybe you were doing reverse breathing or maybe chest breathing and so forth, then this is something to practice into your everyday life. And what I suggest, the easiest way might be to practice is when you're lying in bed right before sleep, to just take a couple minutes to relax the mind-body sense complex and just lay down in your bed, put your hand on heart, hand on belly, and just feel the breath move through the body. This will help you relax into sleep, it'll help you digest the day, and it'll also help to train the mind-body sense complex to go into that rest and digest mood throughout your days, right? And so what we wanna do is do this repetitively. Traditional gurus might say 10 minutes a day, 4 times a day, but I'm just saying start small, start where you're at, and do it right before bed. You're already there, it doesn't hurt to get out of that monkey mind and come right into the body and relax the nervous system, okay? So yes, and George has an excellent suggestion, which is to do it when you wake up as well. It can really help create more vibrancy and vitality in the body when you wake up and create a clearer mindset as you go through your days. Perfectly. Okay. All right, so now let's talk about some of the other methods that can help you come into this place of living in integrity so that you don't feel as stressed out. Okay. Here we go again. All right. So, doo, doo, doo.
You're
Okay, so we
seeing
did diaphragmatic breathing. Thank you for confirming that, Ariana. So now we're in the conversation of meditation. And so I know you've probably seen all these signs that say just breathe, or you've probably read about mindfulness as this great buzzword and heard that meditation can make you calm down. And then you go to sit down and you're like, my mind is bat right? And you're just like, I can't sit. I couldn't possibly sit with all the crazy whirling thoughts. The thing about the mind is that it's it's full of thoughts, and no matter if you've been meditating for over 10 years or 30 years, you're still going to have these fluctuations of mind. The point of the practice is to help you learn how to direct the traffic and to help you develop awareness so that you can respond with grace and ease rather than come in with a reaction. And so it's not that you sit down and you have this clear, peaceful lake in front of you the moment you sit. It's learning to become aware of your thought processes and then learning to transform them, right? And so don't be scared if you go to sit and it's like this crazy monkey mind and you don't know what to do with it. Just stick with the practice and keep working with it. And eventually, what's going to happen is you're going to start to develop awareness that's going to break this chain. So, traditionally, in our day to day lives, what starts to happen is we have a trigger that creates like a stimulus for us. And maybe it's something like a relative that pushes a button. And then you have an automatic reaction that precedes it, that follows it. So, for instance, if this was my mother knows how to push my buttons, right? She might say something, it might push a button, and then I automatically go into this series of habits that perhaps I've been doing my entire life because that's the dynamic of our relationship. Well, yoga science teaches us that you can empower yourself to change that dynamic. You can take those stimulus and those triggers and transform your thinking process so that instead of reacting with whatever set of emotions and words you traditionally react with, you can actually create a pause and then respond as your highest and greatest self. And so, this is the power of meditation. When you sit, and you practice sitting on a regular basis every single day if you can, right? When you start to practice sitting, you develop awareness of your thought processes. And then eventually, what starts to happen is in your daily life, you start to get triggered by your boss, by your work, by your family, whatever it is that triggers you. And instead of just jumping into autopilot of the series of emotions, of frustrations and aggravations and so forth, you develop the capacity to respond with grace and say what it is you meant to say, not send the angry email or angry text back, right? But respond with love and compassion and a sense of, I've got this and I'm empowered to stand within my own self. And so that's the power of meditation. And so we work this practice and we work it for a trajectory of our entire life. That's the trajectory of the practice. But when you start, it might feel a little bit intimidating. You might feel like, okay, well, I need to do this and I need to do it for 20 minutes. That's like what all the pictures and everything everyone's telling me, but you don't have to start that intensely. You need to let the practice meet you are, as George says, and start with something like a simple 1 minute meditation practice. So let's go ahead and just practice this together for a moment, this 1 minute meditation practice, okay? And so sitting tall yet relaxed. You can either close the eyes or take a soft gaze at the floor in front of you. And then bring your awareness to the breath at the bridge of the nostrils. Just start to feel the inflow and outflow of your breath there. Try to keep all your awareness on your breath at the bridge of the nostrils. And if at any point you get distracted, let's say a distraction comes or a thought comes that distracts you and tries to pull you away, Honor that thought, witness it, and return to the breath at the bridge of the nostril. Try to keep your awareness on the breath at the bridge of the nostrils. You'll slowly start to release that practice. So it's really just 1 minute. That's all it takes to bring the body back into homeostasis. And so at nighttime or right when you wake up, doing that diaphragmatic breathing, and then throughout your day, trying this 1 minute meditation practice can do a lot to create that spot pause between stimulus and response so that you can respond instead of react to the different triggers in your life. So I like to use this 1 minute meditation practice at different points throughout my day. So let's say I'm about to go into a meeting at work that I'm nervous about. I might do a 1 minute meditation practice. Let's say I'm driving my car and someone cuts me off in traffic. I might do a 1 minute meditation practice. Let's say I'm in the grocery line at the store and it's taking way too long. I might do a 1 minute meditation practice. I'm feeling my nerves start to clench up. 1 minute meditation practice. Let's say my partner is saying something to me and I don't want to hear it and I find that it's offensive. I might do a 1 minute meditation practice so that I don't bark back, but I come to my center. I listen, I receive what's being said, and then I respond. Let's say the kids are whining and they're going crazy or something, something like that. Similar circumstance. I might try that breathing practice. And all it's going to do is it's going to bring me to this place of balance so that I'm not up here ready to jump back, right? But I'm here, ready to respond and receive what's being said to me, right? And so these are the different instances by which you can use this 1 minute breathing practice all day, every day. Anytime you start to feel internal resistance, contraction, you can bring a sense of ease into the mind, into the body, into the senses by doing this 1 minute breathing practice. All right, so I'd also like to talk about contemplation as a way to help bring us into living in higher integrity. So what we're trying to do is recognize all the different ways that we miss the mark with our intuition. And the reason that we're doing this is because the more and more we can align to our intuition, the better that we feel, the more in flow that we feel, the less internal resistance that we feel, the less stress that we feel. So what we want to do, and what's very, very helpful to someone that's trying to live in higher integrity and reduce their levels of stress, is to do an evening journaling practice or contemplation. And it can be very, very simple. You don't have to write a novel essay. All you need to do is just think about, okay, where did I miss the mark? Where was my intuition saying, don't do this. Don't say yes to that project. Don't, stop saying yes, 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 yes when you're already tired and wired and so forth. Where else did I miss the mark with my intuition? Like when my partner or someone said this and this and I responded and I reacted and I got angry and so forth, like that kind of stuff. Like thinking about, okay, how did I not attune to my intuition? How did I not speak up for myself? How did I not live in integrity in my daily life? And just taking a moment to journal about it. And then at the same time, making a resolution to try again tomorrow. That's it. You just resolve to not do it tomorrow. And let's say tomorrow comes and it happens again. Recognize that you've had a lifetime of repeating these habits over and over again, and it's going to take time to unravel them. And so be compassionate with yourself. And then once again, journal it. Set the intention. And then as you set the intention, let it go, and offer it up and say, hey, tomorrow I'm going to try not to do this again. And eventually, that intention is going to come into fruition. The neuroplasticity of the mind, first thing in the morning, as well as right before you go to sleep, is the most impressionable. So if you set these intentions at the beginning and end of your day, what you're going to start to find is, wow, you're planting seeds in your consciousness that might break the synapses of the mind that are already in these patterns and grooves, what yogis refer to as samskaras. And so the more that you can start to set intentions at the beginning and end of your day through your contemplation practice and what your contemplation practice reveals to you as the right path for you to follow, the more that you are going to increase your chances of transforming your life and creating change for who you want to become next. Okay, so just a quick moment to review on the things that we covered about how to reduce stress. So first, what we had is the 1-minute breathing practice. We have the diaphragmatic breathing, and then we have the contemplation practice. First thing in the morning, setting intentions, right before bed, setting intentions, okay? And it can take, honestly, less than a minute once you start to get the ball rolling. You just take a moment to think about it, and then it goes through, and voila, you're done, okay? All right, so now let's start to think about, okay, how can I start to shift what I eat? Okay, so we've talked about our digestion through the lens of when. We've talked about our digestion through the lens of how, and now let's start to talk about what we're eating and how we can make changes that support a healthier body, mind, sense complex moving forward. So I'm just going to share my screen one more time. And here we are with the slideshow, I think. Let's see. So my first questions for you are, do you feel nourished by what you cook or eat? And how do you make the decision of what to eat? And so take a moment to contemplate that, to either write down or take note. And if you'd like to share in the chat, go ahead. Start to make some notes about whether or not you feel nourished, or how do you make the decision of what to cook or eat. So what I've found over the years in working with a number of different students and clients over the years as a health coach, and working with people in their diet and their lifestyles and so forth, is that many people do not feel nourished by what they cook or by what they eat. Oftentimes, this is kind of like a decision that is very last minute and thrown together because people are really too busy. It's part of being part of the modern day culture. And so a lot of times there's a lot of drive-throughs that are going through, or there's a lot of packaged food that people are eating, like power bars and so forth, rather than eating simple whole foods. And the result ends up usually being a feeling of not really being nourished by what we eat, and not really giving thought to what we eat and how that might affect our consciousness. Now, science reveals to us that there is a legit connection between the gut and the brain, right? And that, and if you've ever, and you don't need science to tell you this, you can just look at the trajectory of your life and see it. Perhaps you had a night where you went out late and you ate a bunch of pizza and had a bunch of beer right before bed, and then you went to bed and you woke up feeling groggy. Or maybe perhaps you overate on a given day and you felt like a hyena for the rest of the day and felt like you couldn't really move. Or perhaps you had a belly ache or a lot of acid reflux and you found yourself really frustrated and aggravated through the day. So you know that it affects the emotions. And what I'd like to share with you is that nature's really got your back when it comes to food. So nature's providing everything that you need during every single season. And all you got to do is look to nature, not necessarily all the synthetic processed stuff that we're putting into our bodies, but look to nature to understand what it is you need to eat. And look to your intuition to understand what it is you need to eat. So, what I mean by nature's got your back is like during the summer, nature is producing sweet fruits that are cooling for the body, a ton of light vegetables and stuff, because the body needs to purify the blood after having been insulated throughout the winter. Or during the fall, there's a bunch of root vegetables that help us insulate and get warmer and create more nourishing, thicker tissue and build throughout the fall to prepare for winter. So nature will give you the answers if you're ever uncertain. And so what we want to do is we want to start to attune to nature, remember that teaching that we are a microcosm of the macrocosm, that idea of as within, so without. We want to have a greater perspective of ourselves as being spirit having a human experience. So we have that. When we have that, our digestion starts to reset, our body starts to feel good, our energy, our focus starts to come back, hormone levels balance out, and so forth. Okay. And so, what I'd like to suggest is that you start to read food labels. And if you look at the food label and there's like a bunch of words and you don't know what they mean, and it's like a bunch of stuff that you can't even pronounce, then your body probably doesn't know what to do with it. Okay. And so basically, if it's full of a bunch of synthetic chemicals, your body's going to have a really hard time digesting it. And those things that don't get digested will lodge into the tissues of the body and form toxicity. Do this daily and repetitively over time, then what you're going to experience is toxicity lodged into the tissues of the body, which can generate disease. And so, what we want to do is start to read the labels and start to notice what's in the food that we're eating. And so, if anything's too complicated, take it out of the pantry, box it up, donate it. If anything has, like, generally the suggestion is like 5 ingredients or more, probably too complicated and hard to digest. Words that are too big that you don't understand and have no idea what they are, probably too challenging for your body to digest. And so we can start to curate our consciousness by choosing what we eat. And the way that we can do that is we can start to understand and move towards a plant-based whole foods diet. So those processed, refined, unethical, and junk foods create a pretty low vibration in the body. They might leave the body feeling pretty stagnant and lethargic and not so good. Moreover, it might create brain fog in the head, and it also might start to make it really hard to see clearly and make your emotions go all over the place. Let's say you're going throughout your day and you're eating a ton of little snacks in the day, right? Your blood sugar, every time you have that coffee or that soda or that bag of chips or that chocolate bar, and all those little snacks that you have throughout the day that aren't part of your real whole food meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, right? All of those are going to raise your blood sugar levels, and your blood sugar levels will start to go up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. What that means is that your focus is going to go up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. And your emotions are going to go up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. So it's all interconnected there. So what we can do is start to move from those processed, refined, unethical, and junk foods that get lodged into the tissues because the body can't digest them, and start to move towards things that are more ethically sourced, and perhaps moving towards things that are organic or more plant-based. So I'd like you to do right now is start to list 5 foods that make you feel alive and vibrant. And then list 5 more that make you feel dull and lethargic. And these answers might be a little bit different for everyone that's here in this class. But what this practice will start to help you do is understand, okay, if I want to feel alive, if I'm feeling like a couch potato this week and I'm feeling depressed and dull and so forth, then I can just start to gravitate towards these 5 foods. And if I'm feeling alive and maybe too vibrant and I want to start to bring my energy down and ground down more, then maybe I can start to gravitate towards these foods. So take a moment to just write that down. So in Ayurveda, there's this teaching that you are what you eat and don't excrete, right? You are what you eat and don't excrete. And what we're seeing here, and by the examples that have been given so far, is that you can start to curate your consciousness, how you feel, by choosing what you eat with intuition and by having things like a plan for your week. So by making conscious choices towards what you put into your body, you can start to affect the mind, you can start to affect the emotional body. And our strategy is to work towards enjoying more of a plant-based diet. I'm not saying vegan or vegetarian diet. Everybody's bodies need something different to meet them where they are. I'm just saying start to add more plants. Start to take out a little bit of the processed foods. Start to read the labels. And see if you can make your plate have like 75% plants and then 25% of the other stuff. And this might take time to get there. You might start with 25%, a ratio of 25 to 75 in the other direction, but slowly, you get there. Because what you want to do is you want to start to create a body that feels vital and clear and start to remove some of those lower vibration foods so that you can think clearly and have a more clearer sense through your emotions and your focus, right? That way you make better decisions in your daily life. That's what all of this really is about. We're trying to live in a high integrity, make decisions, make the right decision for us, right? And so we want to feed ourselves what's going to help us make those great decisions, whether it be a meditation practice, whether it be a breathing practice and setting intentions, or whether it be feeding us ourselves actual food that makes us feel more clear-headed. So the benefits of a plant include lower body mass index, lower blood pressure, lower cholesterol levels, lowering the number of medications needed for chronic diseases, and more. And if you have high blood pressure, diabetes, or cardiovascular disease or obesity, you're definitely going to want to consider having more greens in your diet. So like I said, a lot of these images didn't come out for some reason, but I will tell you what was in them. So basically, there's a lot of cultural influences that's working against us, right? We have drive-throughs, we've got like fast food restaurants, we've got that idea of the big family dinner, we've got things like coffee all day long available at our fingertips and so forth, right? And we're in a society that's go, 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 doing, and it's easy to get a power bar and throw it in your purse or to go to a drive-through. It's much easier. It's also a lot more affordable to eat that way. But thankfully, you have resources from places like Wilkes that can really help you start to adapt having a more healthier plant-based diet into your lifestyle. And we're going to share those resources with you in just a moment. So my strategy to offer you today around choosing what to eat is to ask yourself, how do I want to feel? And make your decision from there. So let's say you're looking at a menu and you're deciding what to eat for the day, and you know that you naturally just want to go straight for the Reuben, but your body feels really heavy and lethargic and dull. And you're like, wow, okay, maybe a salad would feel better in my body right now, or maybe some soup would feel a little bit more nourishing and help to clear out some of the toxicity that's been sitting in my body. So you ask yourself, how do you want to feel? And then you create balance from there. Don't make the decision from that rushed, super like go, go, go kind of mentality. Make the decision from the place of like, okay, this is how I feel now. And to balance that out, I'm going to cultivate the opposite. So let's say you feel really anxious and ungrounded. Then you can start to incorporate something that's very, very grounding to eat and very, very nurturing. So an example of this could be something like a chicken soup or a stew, or something that's a little bit heavier that's full of root vegetables, right? Roots are very, very grounding. Let's say you're feeling the other way, you're feeling very, very heavy. right? You're feeling very, very dull and lazy. Then are you going to go eat a huge tray of lasagna? No, that's going to increase that feeling of feeling dull and lazy. So what we want to do is go inside and feel. And the thing that's going to help you not just jump to your automatic go-to are that 1-minute meditation practice, the diaphragmatic breathing and setting intentions, right? But especially that 1-minute meditation practice. Let's say you're looking at the menu and you feel yourself gravitating towards the thing. Do the 1-minute breathing and you'll start to find, okay, I'm in my center. You'll be able to ask yourself, how do I feel? And what's the right choice to be made here now? Okay. All right, so just a review today of some of the things that we've covered as far as how to eat well using yoga and Ayurveda is number one, to honor nature's rhythm of preventative health care. With food, enjoy your biggest meal at lunch and try to practice a 13-hour fast time to stimulate autophagy, that natural detoxification process. The second part of this is to work on stressing less. Start to build integrity by practicing your 1-minute meditation, work on your breathing, and do some contemplation or journaling. These will all help you support your practice of the bridge of yoga, also known as living in integrity. Start to curate your consciousness with what you eat, read labels, stay away from ingredients you don't understand, add more veggies to your plate, and ask yourself, how do I want to feel? And last but not least, check out some of Wilkes' resources. All right. So what I'd like to do here now is start to open up the floor to Ariana to share some of the resources that Wilkes has to offer surrounding food and getting some of these plant-based foods in your local neighborhood.
Thanks, Suzanne. What a wonderful workshop.
Welcome.
I feel like so much of it targeted to exactly what I needed to hear and issues that I deal with on the daily. So I really appreciate you taking the time to listen with our community.
Oh, so happy to share it. We can do an open Q&A at the end, but for now, like, if you want to share those resources, go for it.
Definitely. Definitely. So our project coordinator for the Fresh Start Farm helped us gather this resource guide for healthy food access in Wilkes County and the surrounding areas. We will make this available on our Facebook page, and you can also private message us with your email if you'd like to get a copy of this resource guide. All of the items in blue are links, so you'll be able to click on them and get directly connected with the resources that are on this sheet. And she's broken it up really meaningfully to the different ways that you can access healthy foods. So for instance, at the top here, we have farmers markets. We've got the Wilkes County Farmers Market and the Wilkes Fresh Mobile Market, which is not in operation right now, but it will start back in May. And this is a really awesome initiative of a lot of local community partnerships that came together and asked the question, how might we improve healthy food in Wilkes County? And this market goes into different communities where access to healthy foods may be the least available. And if you use SNAP or EBT, you often get 50% off of the vegetables that are for sale through the mobile market. So it's an incredible resource, and I encourage you to follow this link and find out the schedule when it's opened by following them on Facebook and finding out the most convenient location for you to access the mobile market. They've also listed here the Boone Winters Farmers Market and other Wicca County markets that you can take advantage of. I wanted to touch on these farms here because a lot of them have what you see listed here as a CSA option. What that means is the farm is putting fresh produce in a box and they deliver it, or you go to pick it up and you have all of the most fresh and in-season vegetables available that have been grown locally in your community, in the environment that you're living in. And then you don't have to go to the market. You just pick up this box and you have everything you need to have a healthy and plant-based intervention into your diet. So I think these CSA options are incredible. And again, as you click on these links, you can access the farms that she has listed here. The High Country Food Hub is a great resource for getting a list of a lot of different farmers and being able to shop directly in one location from a number of different resources. So I encourage you to look that up and see which farmers locally might have produce that you're interested in accessing. And then the last thing here, there's two more things. This section here, the food banks. We have the Second Harvest Food Bank, which can help with free food resources. And then this link here brings you to a number of free food resources, including BROC, the Blue Ridge Opportunity Commission's Free Food Pantry, Wilkes Ministry of Hope Food Pantry. And as you can see, you can click on these detail page links here. Be brought immediately to a page where it explains how you access these resources directly. Of course, Wilkes Recovery Revolution is happy to help you navigate these resources. We're open Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, and we have peer support specialists on staff who will be more than happy to go through this list with you and get you connected with healthy food resources. And the last thing she's included on this list here for you is the classes and workshops available through Wilkes County Cooperative Extension, which is an excellent resource for our community, for the agricultural industry, and for learning more about how to grow, eat, and engage with the healthy food community in our area. Again, this resource is available. You can send us your email in a private message. We will share the link to this document on our Facebook, and we'll share an image of the document. Of course, you won't be able to access the links through the image, but we'll share that on our Facebook after this workshop ends.
Thank you so much, Ariana. If there are any questions for Ariana or myself, I'd like to open the floor for anyone that has any questions.
Definitely. Hi, Philip. I see you've joined us. Philip is one of our peer supports who works directly with the community, getting them connected with resources like these.
Oh, wonderful.
So here.
Wonderful. Yeah. Good. Well, it seems like we're pretty clear here, right? So do they have your contact information or Wilkes's contact in case there's any questions?
Back up here.
Okay,
so
perfect.
We're located in West Park in North Wilkesboro, which is a medical plaza, and our address is listed here at the bottom of the page, and that phone number is active 24/7. Somebody will give you a call back Monday through Friday if you leave a voicemail after hours, and if it's a crisis, there is an option to speak to somebody as well.
Wonderful. Wonderful. All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Suzanne.
George, do you have anything you'd like to say to close off, or are you feeling?
It's wonderful having you here and partner with Wilkes Recovery Revolution. I personally really, it's one of those things that I didn't think I needed because, you know, having learned yoga, I've heard a lot of this before, but sometimes it takes hearing from another person. These things kind of reset my mind, and I just really appreciate your wisdom, and I think it's going to help a good number of people in our community. I've already shared it again myself, just saying, hey, this is amazing. This is
Oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah, and I just I'm very grateful for you. So thank you for taking the time to help us here, and just know you're very much appreciated.
So happy to be here. Thank you. And I know that we shared a lot of information in a very short amount of time. Feel free to reach out. Also, the other thing is to just take baby steps, one small step at a time, right? That you don't have to sit for 40 minutes every single day. Just start with the 1-minute meditation practice to heighten your awareness. And just start very, very small. Start to dial back your meal at supper time, 15 minutes. So you're not eating super late. Start to just think about, okay, how can lunch be a little bit bigger? How can supper be a little smaller? Change the plate to be a little bit smaller. Some people even use smaller utensils. They're having smaller things, or they switch from like, big hearty meals to more soups in the evening, and they find that that makes a big difference, right? And so just work really small, take baby steps, and eventually all those accumulated baby steps will bring you to the results that you're looking for. It's very often that when we fly into things, we create this mode of self-sabotage. So just choose one thing, maybe one piece from today's talk, and then work with that and see what happens. And let George and Ariana or whoever know how it's going. All right. Take care, everyone. It's so great to be here with you. I wish you well.
Thank you, Suzanne. And thank you all for tuning in today. Again, Wilkes Recovery Revolution is open Monday through Friday from 9 to 5. The information is on the bottom of this screen. And we, again, thank you all for tuning in today. Suzanne, thank you one more time for your amazing presentation. I appreciate had the opportunity to work with you so far, and I just wish you all a beautiful day. And from my heart to yours, I truly say namaste. The light in me honors and appreciates and values the light in you.
Namaste.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Have a great day.
I just hit leave here. Is that all?